Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, following on to the letter, I think, introduced by the gentleman from Michigan or the gentleman from New York, dated June 16th. Oh, actually, it was the letter of June 18th, I believe, that was made a part of the record. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to make a part of the record as well, a letter from Judge Carol Bagley Ammon, the Chief Judge of the Eastern District of New York, to all the Chief Judges of the district courts throughout the country, and a letter from Judge John D. Bates, who is the he's the Director of the Administrative Office of the United States Courts, dated June 17, pointing out the need for the gathering of information and pointing out, for example, in Judge Bates's letter, in addition, in order to prepare a comprehensive and geographically complete report of GSA deficiencies from around the country for this initiative, Judge Ammon sent to you a letter yesterday to describe specific examples. These examples will be provided to GSA. So I just want to make it clear that this is not something that is unique to the situation in New Mexico or the situation in Virginia, and I'd ask that those two letters be made a part of the record along with the one already introduced. Mr. Gelber, point's been made that funds are tight. When we have, this year, for example, we're about 8 months into the current fiscal year. So far, the federal government has spent more than $600 billion more than it's taken in. Would you agree that under circumstances like that, funds need to be used wisely by government agencies to stretch dollars as far as they can be stretched?
Yes, sir.
So would you say that spending $3.4 million to patch a leak in a garage at the federal building in Albuquerque, New Mexico was a wise use of federal funds when a number of suggestions were put forward that are listed in Judge Johnson's testimony about how the problem could have been solved without a complete re-landscaping of the exterior of the courthouse?
We felt the key issue regarding that project was the preservation of the roof. The landscaping is in effect a roof for the parking deck that is below that landscaping. And in order to protect that structure, the GSA believed we should proceed with a rethinking of how we approach the landscaping at that facility, but most importantly, stabilizing the roof and sealing the roof so that no further water leaks would occur.
One of the suggestions were that you simply go to desert landscaping. Was that not considered as a good alternative to?
And that is what, to the best of my understanding, that is what we did at that facility.
And it cost $3.4 million to avoid this.
The majority of the work associated with that project was associated with, in effect, rebuilding and resealing the roof for the parking deck. A proportion of that project was also spent on the new landscaping for that facility, replacing the grass that was there previously with what you and I would refer to as desert landscaping.
Now, with regard to the PAW Federal Building in Roanoke, you are aware now that a total of $82 million has been expended or requested by the GSA on this project for a building that cost $14 million to construct in the mid-1970s, and the purpose of that was to replace the windows, the roof, the HVAC system, and the bathrooms in that building. The ostensible purpose was to green the building, to create a more energy-efficient situation. It's my understanding that the life expectancy of the materials put into the building is somewhere between 30 and 40 years, and yet the payback on the energy savings would take, by the calculation of some 218 years to recoup the so-called energy savings in that building. Would you say that the going on $82 million, and I would suggest that there's going to be more expenditures beyond that, was a good use of the taxpayer dollars in that building?
The GSA has an obligation to maintain the various assets that we have in our inventory.
But don't you have an obligation to consider all of the alternatives in terms of providing facilities when you do that? And don't you have an obligation to consider what the impact is on your tenants when you do that? I mean, both the the Veterans Administration, which is in a crisis over the processing of claims and providing services to benefits, and was required to relocate out of the building for 3 years at 4 separate locations while the files were remaining in the building and had to be shuttled back and forth. You don't think that had a serious impact on veterans? And the court found itself having to work around this with serious security issues with regard to disruptions, danger to the safety of the employees. Don't you think that the GSA could have done a better job of consulting with the tenants and considering how this would best work to find better facilities for them and in a more cost-efficient manner than spending $82 million, nearly 7 times or 6 times what was spent on the original construction of the building?
Based on the testimony of the Chief Judge and Ms. Smith, I fully agree that GSA has space to improve in how it interacted and communicated with the tenants in that building.
Well, let me ask you this. I agree with you on that. Why hasn't anyone at GSA been held accountable with regard to the mismanagement of this project? Has anybody been fired or disciplined as a result of the decision-making process that was undertaken and the results that are now painfully evident?
I'm not aware of any personnel actions, and I would also not agree with the notion that there was any mismanagement that required such personnel action to be taken.
Mr. Chairman, if I might have 1 additional minute, I would like to ask another question.
Without objection.
Why hasn't anyone at GSA been held accountable for violating federal law in publishing the guaranteed maximum price that the government would pay for the renovation of the POF building? In other words, it's required under the law that you not reveal the maximum amount, not an amount you'd like to pay, but the maximum amount you'd pay was disclosed to the people who bid on the contract. And lo and behold, every single one of them, what did they bid? The maximum amount. Was anybody held accountable for what had to be millions of dollars in loss to the taxpayers? Millions of dollars that could have been diverted to address some of the other needs that we have talked about here today in maintaining facilities around the country. Was anybody held accountable for that violation of the law?
The GSA Inspector General reviewed that part of the process, and no recommendation for any such prosecution or action was made.
The Inspector General is charged with pointing out these errors, but he's not charged with managing the operation of the GSA. The GSA is perfectly capable of making decisions themselves with regard to how they hold people accountable for these failures to help ensure that these things don't occur in the future. Has anybody been disciplined for any of this?
I'm not aware of any disciplinary actions associated with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.